everything that's going on in the great world of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. From the fundamentals in the news to the technicals on the charts, we spend the time doing hours of research so that you all don't have to. And we're going to have a long episode in store. And I know you're thinking, you're saying, Brendan, TiVo, you guys just had a long episode. They're getting longer by the week. And the truth here is that's because there's more coming out every single week. And I'm not trying to overhype or oversell this episode, but I truly think that we just had one of the most impactful and influential weeks in all of crypto. And I'm sure by the end of today's episode, you're going to agree with me. You're going to be like, holy smokes, Brendan, you weren't kidding. So just to give you a little bit of a preview of what we're going to talk about here, Bitcoin rallied back to the upside since last week's dip from 98K to over 108K. It's hovering just below its all-time highs right now. Robinhood came out at ETHCC, a big event over in Europe, announcing some massive changes to the way that they're going to be using their entire platform. They're going to be building a layer 2 on Ethereum through Arbitrum. They're going to be tokenizing stocks so that anyone, anywhere in the world can get access to the US stock market. They're also going to be using tokenization so that people can get exposure to privately held companies like SpaceX and like OpenAI, and they're going to be looking into more avenues after that. So they're using tokenization in a very traditional way so that everyone around the world can get access. We're going to talk about it. Tom Lee came out, a huge name from Frundstrat and from the TradFi side of things. He's been a long-time Bitcoin and crypto bull, but now he's creating the first MicroStrategy for Ethereum. And so this is where they're raising hundreds of millions of dollars to accumulate an ETH treasury. SharpLink is doing the same thing. They just expanded their ETH treasury over the last week. Deutsche Bank is coming out and saying that they're going to be launching crypto custody starting next year in 2026. The Bitcoin ETF flows just saw a 15-day streak of inflows, which accumulated to almost $5 billion in the ETFs alone. The largest independent registered investment advisor in the US says that people should have up to 40% crypto exposure if they want a very risk-centered approach. The SEC just approved the Grayscale ETF for the first spot index that includes Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, XRP, and Cardano, which, spoiler alert, some of those don't even have spot ETFs yet, which is a little bit of a foreshadowing of what's likely to come. And there's just all sorts of other things. We got some clips that we want to share with you all. But what a mouthful, TiVo. Did I get it all out? Did I
Yeah,
miss anything?
you did miss something. Breaking
Uh-oh.
news off the X. James Safard, first spot Solana ETF is officially live. Healthy start for the trading for new ETF. $8 million trading in the first 20 minutes. So
Wow.
first Solana ETF by Osprey. Osprey.
That
REX Osprey Souls plus staking. Wow.
that is surprising. Sort of that it's not surprising that they are that a Solana ETF got approved. It's surprising that they were the first one, I think.
Yeah, usually they you know, launch those off together. I'm trying to pull up the tweet real quick. I know we're kind of jumping off the bandwagon here. You didn't even get to ask me how I'm doing. That's how exciting the crypto markets are. We don't even
Yeah.
have time for our normal intro, but here it is.
Breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news right off the jump. So super exciting.
Wow.
Obviously, there's going to be more to learn. I think if that's getting improved, there's got to be a flurry of them coming. Like you said, it's interesting that they let one run here. But wow, hot off the press, and good morning and welcome to everybody who's watching in the live. And for everybody listening on the podcast, I think this is going to be a long one, Brendan. I think we're going to go for the record. I think this is going to take us about an hour. So what I might do, just to preview the listeners, because we do have the long holiday week. If it is about an hour or maybe more, what I might do is chop it in half and release one, part 2 later in the week, because I know we have a long holiday week. People are traveling, enjoying the beach. So if there's any travelers out there looking for 2 episodes, if this is a long one, I might chop it up. Just something to think about. But this is jam packed. I couldn't agree with you more, Brendan. This is a top 5 rundown episode of all time, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, and on top of this, I'll add more breaking news. The M2 money supply just jumped 4.5% or year over year. It's at a new all-time high. That's the point. And it looks like there is a tsunami on the way. And some people are saying, no, it's not true. The tsunami is a gigantic wave constructed of bulls. And it looks like it's going to plow over the markets and just send everything upwards. I'm glad I got my little Solana and ETF bit out saying, hey, there's a foreshadow that these ETFs are probably going to get approved right before you announce the breaking news. So that way it didn't look like, I don't know, I had inside info. But yeah, I mean, let's just start it from the top, TiVo. How are you doing? Given everything that's happening, how are you? How are you feeling?
Dude, I'm good, man. I'm super excited. I know we had to basically stop our pre-show just good morning with each other because we
Yeah.
basically were creating our own podcast episode talking about what we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
It is a really exciting time, and it's the same thing that I preach over and over again each week. It's like, that this Bitcoin price range of the 100 to 108 and then the altcoins really not following through for the last couple months, leaving people quote unquote maybe bored for the average crypto crowd that's just kind of gets the notifications when they get their price action that they're looking for on the upside. But man, there is so much going on. I wouldn't even say under the table anymore. It used to be under the table where you'd have to dig for these type of stories. This is stuff that's happening in Washington on the Hill. It's happening on live streams. I know we have a Robinhood segment coming up. Like they had an epic live stream that I know me and you tuned into to watch live, thinking like we might get a nugget of what's coming, and then boom, just absolutely sideswiped with some wild news of what we're going to talk about. And it was live at that moment. They put it on live then. And so it's moving so fast. It feels breakneck speed, and the price obviously isn't, I guess, following along with that, which is upsetting for some. But again, it's zoom out, big picture. Look where we were 2-3 years ago and where we are today. And that proves to my point that you just got to stick with us every week. Again, if your price action isn't there, we have our listeners that come every week. We love them. We appreciate them. But again, I see those numbers spike when the price action comes up. So if you're somebody that comes in time to time, just make sure you're tuning in every week because right now, for the foreseeable future, there's stuff happening every week. And I guess that might be a little quick tee up here for kind of a small announcement for the show is we're going to be doing more rundowns.
Yeah.
So Brendan and I are working on it. Obviously, we have the 4th of July holiday coming up, and we're trying to figure out the schedule. But Brendan and I are going to up our output to 2 times a week. And then Brian and Joe, who you guys have learned to really enjoy for that kind of meme coin or momentum, high flyer trades, they're going to try to come on one time a week. And then obviously with Bryce and Brendan, our traditional interviews still coming along 1 time a week as well. And we got to get Bryce in the mix more for sure. But that's stuff that we're planning, so you can see how we're invested in what's going on right now. We're going to try and give you guys more because there's just so much going on. So that's something that we're really going to try and put together, look forward to. So small announcement there, but definitely look for the back half of July. We're going to be putting out some more episodes.
Yeah, certainly. Like you said earlier, as these episodes have gone from 20 to 30 to 40 minutes, now an hour, I think it just makes sense that we break these up. We're able to make it also a little bit more time sensitive if it is broken up in 2 ways. That means you're getting the news sooner and faster. And
yeah, you're nailing the point. It's like we do these, we wait a week and we have the most epic rundown sheet that we use to do the show. And it's like, dude, this is 2 separate shows. Yeah. So hopefully, I'm sure some weeks might be not as exciting as others, but like if we were doing 2 episodes a week for the last couple of weeks, we'd have a full 30 minutes each time we do it easily. So it's definitely the right move.
Certainly. Well, let's dive in here. I mean, let's look at the charts because that's what I think a lot of people care about. We'll talk about the infrastructure and the news and everything that is happening other than that in just a moment. But just looking over here at Bitcoin first, what we have here is just some consolidation. And I'm going to do a little bit of an exercise that I did with one of our private groups here. But if we look at what is happening on Bitcoin, I want you to visualize what we're seeing right here, right? We have a move to the upside followed by a falling channel, right? You can see this. It doesn't take an expert. You can see that there are lower lows and lower highs in a very symmetrical way where we have just lower lows, lower highs. You can see that this is a falling channel after a very clear move to the upside. Now, in technical analysis, whether you love it or not, we call this a bull flag. And I want to show you just how identical this is to what a bull flag actually looks like. So I just Googled bull flag pattern. The first things that come up here, you can see it, is a move to the upside followed by this falling channel. And we see this in image 1, in image 2, in image 3, in image 4, 5, 6. Like they're all identical where you have this move to the upside followed by a falling channel with typically around 3 lower lows, 3 lower highs. You get around 3 touch points of support and resistance. And that is exactly where we're at right now. So memorize this and then look at this. And you're going to look at this and it looks extremely similar. So what in the world is a bull flag? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a bullish flag or consolidation before a continuation to the upside. So we have a move to the upside. We have this flag or consolidation before there is more upside continuation afterwards. So what this is saying is that in the bigger picture, this should result in a move to the upside. Now, at this point, we're at all-time highs. So a move to the upside would mean new all-time highs. This would mean Bitcoin probably pushing up to at least $120,000 on the upside, maybe even more than that, likely more than that in the long term. But in the short to midterm here, we're looking at this and saying, hey, there's going to be volatility. Prices are going to move up and down. Anything can happen in the short term. But the overall result of this should be Bitcoin moving up to a higher price, above new all-time highs. So the technicals here, it looks good. Bitcoin's above the 200-day moving average. It's above 100K. It defended this. It's above the 20 and 50-day moving average. There's a big bull flag formation here on the daily chart as we are squeezing into all-time highs. So forget the short term. The bigger picture here is this looks like it's going to resolve to the upside, and I would be keeping an eye on this. Like things look really, really good. And there are few resistance levels left, like a little bit at 108K, a little bit at the all-time highs. Then we're back into price discovery mode. And altcoins have been doing quite good as well. I mean, we have the Ethereum ETF or the Solana ETF coming out, and I think we're waiting for a lot more of those to be approved. That's a really big deal. I think that as we start to see inflows and attention over there, this could be a big thing for Solana. We've also started to see some other cryptos performing very well in recent weeks. I mean, Aave's had a nice recovery since last Sunday. This thing's already up about 27%. Hyperliquid's in the same boat. Euler, one that, I think we've talked about a little bit on here. I know we've talked about it internally. I mean, just a ridiculous rally in the last week or so, up 55%. Fartcoins made a little bit of a rally. I know Syrup has been another big one, just continuing with its volatility. I mean, there's altcoins that are popping left and right. And there's a lot of cool stuff that is going on over here. And this is what I like to label, or a lot of people label it, as popcorn season. And Tivo, I think we talked about this maybe last week, and we said, we're at a stage of the market where there are tens of millions of cryptos. And it's hard for the entire crypto market, thousands and millions of cryptos to all go up together at the same time for an extended period of time because there's so many. So what this does is this pushes us into a more common popcorn season where select altcoins are popping off and doing well and performing well. And that's where we're at right now. So take notes of that. Understand that not every altcoin is always going to be popping at all times. And we're at a stage of the market where you have to be a picker. You got to pick. You got to choose the winners. And, it's important to understand that. So don't get too frustrated if your bags aren't moving. I know a lot of the cryptos that were just mentioned in some of these ETFs, we mentioned with that basket ETF, as we'll talk about later, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, and Cardano, I think were all the ones mentioned. And obviously all of those are green here on the day as prices are moving up. So yeah, I mean, a lot of positives here on the chart. Bitcoin dominance is still pretty high, which people want to see this fall in order for an altcoin season to truly begin. But we should be getting pretty close to that point. I see a lot of people speculating that this altcoin season is probably going to happen a little bit towards the end of summer, probably even in the fall territory. That seems to be the general consensus at the moment. But as this gets closer to 70%, people are becoming increasingly more positive that an altcoin season is near, which is definitely another thing to consider. But yeah, I mean, overall, lots of good price action, TiVo.
Yeah, everybody loves a good Uptober, just in case it does happen in the fall,
Yeah.
and falls in the month of October. But I think this episode's basically going to be around kind of. I know we've talked about it inside the community and a lot on the podcast. Is like, okay, how do we get crypto and blockchain used for everyday people? Because the more people that get online and use it, obviously, the more money that is going to flow on chain that can eventually, in light of better words, pump our bags, right? And we had some wild announcements this week. As mentioned at the top of the show, Robinhood leading us off with quite possibly, and I'd love your thoughts on it, Brendan, as somebody who is an expert in the space. But for me, people could definitely say that I'm biased because I know I've talked a lot about Robinhood on the show over the years. But Robinhood had one of the biggest announcements, I think, in crypto history and in finance history almost, with their announcement that they are basically tokenizing stocks. And we've heard this. This is definitely something that has been talked about before, but it's all kind of like Coinbase came out and said, okay, the future of finance is on chain. We're going to tokenize stocks and do this and do that. And so everybody's kind of talked about it. But then Robinhood comes out, doesn't only talk about it, they announce it, and while they're announcing it, they say, "Oh, and by the way, it's live right now in multiple countries around the world." So I think I pulled up this tweet. It was a long. I think we decided we're not going to play this video. I might have found a different video we can play after we kind of tee it up of Vlad, because I think this 3-minute one's just a little long for the pod. But Brendan, tokenizing stocks. It's basically kind of flows off of their Bitstamp purchase, right? So we talked about how Robinhood bought Bitstamp, and the goal for this tokenization of buying stocks is it's going to go 24/5, so 24 hours, 5 days a week. And then they gave us another layer of the goal is to do 24/7. And the way they're going to do that is through their acquisition of Bitstamp, and kind of give you some different layers. But it's definitely something that was a super cool announcement. It's live. I've seen on X, people are using it around the world. People are trading it already. And I think there's obviously more information to come, and it's something you might want to read about and deep dive. But I know you read an article and might be able to give us some more color on it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is when this event was happening, it was like seeing your childhood dreams come to life. And what I mean by that is we've always said, hey, tokenization is this multi-trillion-dollar industry. All these TradFi assets are going to be brought on chain. They're going to be tokenized. They're going to be decentralized. It's going to increase liquidity. We're going to be able to have 24/7 trading. And Robinhood pretty much came out and said, we're going to be the first TradFi player to do this. We are tokenizing the stock market. We are tokenizing everything so that you can have 24/7 trading anywhere in the world at any time for a super small fee because it's on an Ethereum layer 2. And on top of that, they said, why stop with the creativity there? He hinted at, oh, you could do bonds and you could do all these other things and indexes, and it's not just the stock market. But then he said, why stop there? What if we could tokenize and let people get exposure to privately held companies? Things that you'd have to be an accredited investor in order to get exposure to prior. Why should we gatekeep that only to accredited investors? And he hinted at the idea of people getting exposure to SpaceX, people getting exposure to OpenAI, people getting exposure to a lot of these companies that clearly people love and think are going to do well, and they can't get exposure to it right now because they're not publicly traded companies. And the summary of it was, we are doubling down. No, not double. They're quadrupling down on their take to crypto, and they're saying we believe in this. We're betting big on it, and they are making history with their stance. I also do believe that they are setting the standard here, right? Now, let me be clear. Both of us have exposure to Robinhood. We've been big fans of what they've been doing, but it's because they're betting so big on the crypto market, and they're doing it in such an innovative and just inspiring way that they are giving everyone the full potential and the stuff that we've been asking for that no one else would give. So they're saying, we'll spend the time and the resources and the money. We'll bet big on this. And people have been responding so positively, so overwhelmingly positive, that that's why they're doing so well. Because no one else wanted to take the gamble. They did. Clearly, people are happy about it. I mean, they're up
It,
a ridiculous amount, TiVo.
Well, funny you say that they're up a ridiculous amount, because if you don't mind pulling up the chart for me, while we were giving our Robinhood spiel, it's like the stars aligned. Shout out to Lance in the comment. Lance is saying Hood above 100, and I was like, "Is this guy trolling me?" So I opened up my app real quick, and while we were giving our take there, Hood just kissed 100. I believe it hit 158, $100.58. First time Hood has ever broken that 100 mark. Reminds me of that time we were on live and did the Bitcoin all-time high, Brendan.
Yeah.
It reminds me quite like that. So shout out to Lance for looking at the charts and watching us live on YouTube, being in the comments, being active. Thank you, Lance, for that update. And I see you got the Hood chart here. Look at that line. I know we kind of teed it up in the show, just a chance to kind of go in the history books of how me and you have talked about Robinhood for a long time. So what do you got there?
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned this. I think your original Hood call was it February 7th, 2024? Am I right there?
Correct.
I mean, I want to toot TiVo's horn a little bit here. It's up 840, or I think that's roughly 846%. I'm probably need to go to a logarithmic auto chart to see this a bit more clearly. But I mean, yeah, from $10 to $100. I mean, it's literally up almost 10x. Crazy.
Unbelievable. Best, one of the best calls and trades of my young investing career. And it's a credit to this podcast. It really is, because it piqued my interest when we had Johan Kerbout on the first time from Robinhood Crypto, who was on that live stream. Again, full circle stuff, guys. Like, we had him on back in 2024, end of January, beginning of February. I guess that interview was end of January 2024. Johan Kerbout was the GM of crypto, and I started looking in. I enjoyed Robinhood's UI. I was doing some option trading, and I really started to look into their crypto stuff. And was just like, this kind of seems like a no-brainer for a long-term, crypto buy. Obviously, we love our altcoins and Bitcoin, and it kind of, Robinhood to me, and I think you would agree, it was like kind of like one of our altcoin trades. Like, hey, this is going to be leveraged to crypto.
Yeah.
And again, I think the 800% is, you got to have some luck in that, but it's, you got to go and do the extra research, and it's never personal financial advice for anybody out there, but it starts with listening to this podcast and producing this podcast. That gave me the insight to be like, man, maybe I should look more into this crypto side of Robinhood. And nobody saw it. Nobody was talking on TV about it until it was around $30-$40. And, at the time in 2024, it was $8, $9, $10. And then all of a sudden, 400% later, everybody's like, oh, this is a crypto play. It's a no-brainer. If you want leverage to crypto and Bitcoin, buy Robinhood. And I was just like, man, we've been saying this on the Crypto 101 pod for a year by now. So super, super exciting. And, I appreciate, the flowers and the love, and I appreciate you riding along. I know we've had a lot of fun, trading it and obviously getting some gains. But again, it's a testament to our research and this podcast and all the expertise that we bring, you and your trading, Bryce and his, just pure crypto knowledge, and being the person in the industry that allows us to get these amazing interviews, and just, coming in as a producer from kind of outside crypto to diving full on into it, from kind of a novice to now, that kind of reaching that expertise level of being in this stuff every day. There's no doubt that this podcast is how I've grown and helped me, start my research to make my own decisions when deciding what to bet on or invest on, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're here to give the alpha. We're here to talk about things before they make these moves, and that is the goal. But
let's go. Sorry, I went on a little rant there, but let's hear from Vlad himself. I found this clip, so it's a little bit shaved down. It's a quick 30 seconds from Vlad, and then we'll wrap up the Robinhood conversation.
All right.
I believe it will make it easier to invest in American companies if you're outside the world. It will also bring the markets into 24/7 and fully on-chain, and get all the benefits that crypto technology levies on these traditional assets. So I think it's time to move beyond Bitcoin and meme coins into real-world assets that exhibit fundamental utility.
So interesting kind of thought process. Obviously mentioned Bitcoin. I wouldn't say it was a slight to meme coins. Obviously they have the longer version of that. I heard it was like, there's a place for all of these things, but we want to bring real world assets on chain. And obviously they're starting with tokenized versions of stocks, trying to open that up to the masses literally around the world. I'm not going to deep dive on what they announced around mortgages. I know I told you that on the side, I think, but they're opening up a mortgage business. So if Robinhood's opening up a mortgage business, wheels turning, what's going to happen? 5 years, maybe less, 10 years, whatever. They're going to try and put mortgages on chain. You know, when you have the deed to your house, the deed to my parents' house is in a dusty filing cabinet in the basement. Doesn't make any sense, right? All this stuff needs to be on chain, and it unlocks liquidity. So that's the type of stuff I'm looking for the future in Robinhood. And their last big announcement was staking. So that was always my thing with Robinhood Crypto was, man, we need staking. Like I'm missing out on that 5 whatever plus 10% depending on the coin for staking benefits. And they just announced, and it went live as they announced it. Staking for ETH is live. It's about 2.3%. And staking for Solana is live at 7.3%.
I love that Lance in the chat, shout out to Lance, just said altcoin summer is the new hot boy summer.
I love that. Dude, Lance sounds like a good guy to get a beer with, that's for sure.
Yeah, shout out to Lance, and shout out to D&T NFT. He has been a longtime supporter of the whole group, but he was actually with me before I was even a part of the Crypto 101 team, pushing almost a decade back. So
yeah, I can feel our community growing on here. I think it, obviously we do this in the morning, so it's a little bit hit or miss, but I know as we do more, we're going to try and announce it and stay consistent so we can keep building that, live online community, because it is really fun when the chat gets active.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's talk about that. If altcoin summer is the new hot boy summer, Tom Lee is coming in as as the lead, we'll call him the leader of hot boy summer. And he is coming out with the micro strategy of Ethereum, and had to catch myself there, Tiva. I don't know if you caught it, but Tom Lee is coming out as the newest addition to the Treasury game. And we talked about this in the recent weeks, and we said everyone gets a Treasury. It's like the Oprah show where you get a Treasury and you get a Treasury, and this just continues to happen. Oprah is still pointing the finger, still giving more people Treasuries. Tom Lee is a household name. He is genuinely one of the names that I think I respect the most out there. If we could create a perfect panel of guests, I think it would be Tom Lee, Michael Saylor, Matt Hogan, James Seyfart, and I'm probably missing someone. But if we could have that would be a master panel. And he's coming out here and he's saying, I'm betting big on Ethereum here. We're creating the Ethereum Treasury, and this is going to essentially be an echo of what Michael Saylor has been doing at Strategy with the Bitcoin Treasury approach. And so he's talking about this. He explains it. We'll go ahead and roll the clip.
And this is some big news. It's kind of complicated, but probably suffice to say that you all are doing basically what MicroStrategy did with Ether. You're going to make Ether, the purchases that you buy through this, you're going to set this whole thing up like this. You want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, glad to. I'm still a big fan of Bitcoin because I think it is, digital gold. But what we've seen in the last, really in 2025 is the financial services industry and crypto are converging. And it really started with stablecoins, which is the ChatGPT of crypto, right? Because it's viral adoption by consumers, businesses, banks, and now even Visa. Underneath the stablecoin industry is Ethereum. That is really the backbone and architecture of stablecoins. So it's important to create a project that essentially accumulates Ethereum to essentially protect and have some influence on the network. So that's why we're creating this treasury vehicle to buy Ethereum. The more Ethereum that's accumulated, the more secure the network is. And I think it's also sort of the architecture that future banks will have. When Goldman issues a stablecoin and JP Morgan doing it on Ethereum, as a layer 1 blockchain, they're going to want to secure it by staking Ethereum. So we're trying to get in front of that by creating a treasury vehicle.
Two things on that. Number one, great explanation for kind of that base level of why he's doing it. And also that is the point of Robinhood. So I don't know if we mentioned it. We got kind of caught up in our own personal call, which is fair for an 800% call. But Robinhood is tokenizing through Arbitrum, which is obviously via Ethereum. So I think that Tom Lee, to build on your point, is somebody that we all enjoy in the crypto space and enjoy listening to, because you can go back and pull clips of him on CNBC telling people they should do 1% exposure to Bitcoin when it was in that, $2,000 to $5,000 range, and everybody called him crazy. So, a unique call here. I think the Bitcoin maxi community was really upset at this because they know Tom is a longtime Bitcoin bull. And then obviously with this Ethereum, it's a different take. So he's definitely getting mixed reviews from crypto Twitter, but I think Tom's somebody that doesn't make his decisions from the comments on Twitter, right? No. He's a data-driven guy. That's how he's made his name. So a fascinating take. I wouldn't bet against Tom. But you got to make, never financial advice. Tom would tell you the same thing. So you got to make your own decisions. But I think it's an interesting point to announce this right after we've basically gone, 6 months plus of Ethereum lagging and really, really underperforming, especially into Liberation Day. And that final dip below 2K was terrifying. So, Ethereum that's going to be the title of this episode is Ethereum takes center stage.
I mean, Ethereum has been underperforming Bitcoin, TiVo, since summer of 2022. So we're now pushing 3 years later. And Ethereum has been underperforming Bitcoin for 3 years, and now we're seeing people come in. We've kind of been saying this as well. I think Ethereum is at its turnaround point. I really, really do. He made the point of, when you look at all the infrastructure that is happening, all of the changes that are happening, and all of the adoption that's happening, it is primarily behind Ethereum. Now, Solana is seeing a lot of success just in different sectors, but when you look at the stablecoin legislation, that is primarily impacting Ethereum. It is completely underlined by Ethereum. When you look at tokenization, almost entirely backed by Ethereum here. Robinhood's a great example of that. And when you look at DeFi and what's happening on that side, again, mostly on Ethereum. So stablecoins, DeFi, and tokenization, all looking to scale, all looking to be more integrated and grow. And as that happens, he's saying, I think that there's a bet on Ethereum here, and it's undervalued relative to Bitcoin and probably the rest of the market. And I think it's a pretty sound argument. Now, again, like anything, it's going to have ups and downs, but I would agree with him here. I think that the overall picture is up and to the right. I can't see this not doing well, right? There's a lot of these different things to pay attention to. And, they're coming out and they're starting off with $250 million to fund this first treasury. And this is right after SharpLink also came out. They started a treasury, and they even added to this week. So they acquired another 9,690 Ethereum, which is around $24 million worth, to increase their total Ethereum holdings to 198,167 Ethereum. It's a big amount. And I only see this growing. Again, I see this being like MicroStrategy, where they're going to continue to acquire more as it dips, as it has its ups and downs, which it will have. They will accumulate more because they believe in the long term. And we've seen what that's been able to do to Bitcoin, right? I also think it can have a similar effect going forward for Ethereum. And Ethereum has a little bit of a catch-up game to play. Bitcoin is right below all-time highs. Ethereum is still quite far from it. I think its all-time high was just below $5,000. And at the moment here, Ethereum's sitting at around 2,400. So it would need to about double in price, roughly speaking, to get back to that all-time high, whereas Bitcoin is basically sitting there. But I see both assets doing well. I see both doing well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's important to, give our honest opinions. And I was kind of playing that Ethereum trade. I did that in 2017, 18 too. I rode kind of Ethereum pretty heavy, which worked out. But then I was really disappointed in the price action of Ethereum, and I know we all were, and we were kind of scratching our heads, wondering why. There's so much momentum, and the ETFs went live, and you're kind of playing the playbook of the Bitcoin ETFs, and it didn't work out like everybody thought. But that's why I kind of love the announcement from Tom. Is it's kind of a counter trade, right? Mm-hmm. So I think at one point. In our team group chat, I think I threw in there, I was like, hey, are we still riding Ethereum? When we went under 2K, I was like, man, this is a huge pain point for me, because I was, I really, really believe in the technology and the platform, and again, Tom kind of broke it down in a very, layered way of what he's looking for in the future of it. But I think you got to love the use, and especially with Robinhood and now Tom doing the treasury and kind of pitching that stablecoin narrative. Something to watch. Again, that's what we do here. There's these narratives that build. I think, again, beat a dead horse here, or not to be a dead horse, is like the Robinhood narrative we gave in 2024, February 2024, years later. Obviously, even it's probably quicker timeline than most to get, an 800% sometimes for stocks. But, you got to build your narrative, and you got to be there before the masses come in. And not all your investments or bets are going to work out. So that's why you got to do your own research and deep dive in and learn from us here, and, do your own research as well. But, these narratives are building, and kind of to the point of why there's so much news is it's not under the table anymore. It's out in the open. And so I'm super excited about Ethereum, hopefully to keep the momentum going into the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, man. And, I think that the momentum will continue. If you look at what Deutsche Bank is doing, a huge player, they are saying, hey, we're going to plan for crypto custody starting in 2026. And this just goes to show, and we talked about this like a year ago, and we said the names that aren't in are going to regret it, and they're going to eventually cave, and they're going to have to offer crypto custody. There's going to be too many people asking for it. Everyone else is going to be doing it. And they're going to be leaving a lot of money on the table, or seeing people just overall leave to a place where they can't get this stuff. And it's going to be a frustration and a pain point. And that's exactly what we've seen so far. So Deutsche Bank, it's the next one on the list. They're going to be offering crypto custody coming next year. And in the meantime, the Bitcoin ETFs feel unstoppable. The level of inflows that they have seen is crazy. And just when you think it can't stop, it has to stop, it just continues and continues and continues. And where we're at now is that they have seen a 15-day inflow streak. And this accounts for almost $5 billion of inflows. And this is all happening not while we're low, not while we're going like completely parabolic and stuff. It's happening like right below all-time highs. Like pressure is building. People are so comfortable buying up here. And that's what this tells me, TiVo. If we're seeing 15 days of inflows, $5 billion nearly coming into the market, people are comfortable buying right below all-time highs. They're not worried. That means that if all these investors are doing this, they are betting that Bitcoin will go to a new all-time high. Otherwise, they wouldn't be investing and so comfortable buying right below all-time highs. That's what this means. So if you scroll down a little bit on the chart, just a tad, there's going to be a chart in here where you can actually see, this. And if you click on the 1 month little tab there, it can zoom in, and this shows you what that inflow day looks like, what the inflow streak looks like. Now, it's not completely up to date. This lags behind as they collect the data, but you can see that the overall amount of inflows here have been overshadowing the outflows for almost the entirety of the last month. You can see at the very beginning of June, there were a few like little days here, but when you put it all together, especially the last 15, 20 trading days of information, I mean, it is a night and day difference. I mean, on some of these days, it looks like there's no outflows. There's no one selling.
Right.
There's no one selling at all-time highs, and everyone's buying. So
how about that interesting day here? 617. IBIT is teaching their clients. That's BlackRock, obviously, is teaching their clients. 617. We're buying while everybody else is selling. So I wonder if that was a dip day, but I think that's interesting to see some heavy outflows. And while IBIT is rocketing higher, it's a huge buy day.
Yeah, I mean, they're just gobbling up market share. I was reading a report right before this, and what it was saying was that the Bitcoin ETFs now hold 7% of all of Bitcoin's supply. So 1.4 million Bitcoin worth $150 billion.
Wow.
How's that for a number?
Yeah, that's wild. Sorry that this thing is, I don't know how to click out of this. There we go. Yeah, but that's the Tom Lee's point about Ethereum, right? With a proof of stake, is that you want to gobble up a percentage of the network for obviously staking rewards, but to kind of secure the network as well. So I think that's kind of the point is, You see iBit doing it, MicroStrategy doing it for Bitcoin. And so it'll be interesting to see if that takes on. Obviously, Tom Lee leading the way there, some other companies also doing it as discussed. But if that picks up momentum, especially around the stablecoin market, I heard Tom compared the stablecoin market to finance is like AI to technology. It's the future. Everybody's diving in, and you can see that with obviously the IPO of Circle. So, the AI trade in stocks has gone crazy. Quantum computing had its moment at the end of the year as well for just, I think there's a stock out there called quantum computing, and it was, up, 1,000% in a couple of weeks without people knowing exactly what they even do. So it'll be interesting to see if there is that run from the finance investing side with Ethereum, or obviously we saw it a little bit with Circle. But again, seeing the narrative, what has this show been bringing to you every week for the past month? All these credit card services, the MasterCards of the world, and all these banks starting their own stablecoin initiative and partnering with these credit cards. So it's like the narrative's there, and will it keep growing? So again, dude, unbelievably bullish news. It's wild.
But wait, there's more. Just in, Germany's largest banking group, I'm going to butcher this, but I think it's Sparkassen, is set to launch crypto trading services starting next year as well. So, we like bringing up stuff like this. It shows globally there is adoption. It's not just in the US, it's not just here and there, globally. Everyone is getting in on this. They know that they have to, or else they're going to be left behind. Deutsche Bank realizes this. Schwab realizes this. Sparkassen realizes this. Everyone realizes this. And the more that adoption happens, we see these different players out there are recommending more and more crypto exposure. And it's funny because we talked to Matt Hogan from Bitwise, and we just talked to Franklin Templeton as well here in recent weeks. And what we've been seeing is that people have gone from no crypto exposure to maybe like 0.5%, to 1%, to 2%, to 3%, to 5%. And recently we saw that there was the largest independent registered investor advisor saying if people want more of a risk-on approach, then they can do up to 40% exposure to crypto. And so we have a clip for this, and we'll go ahead and roll that.
Today, I'm saying 40%. That's astonishing, right?
Yeah.
Nobody ever anywhere has said such a thing as what I'm saying now. Why the shift? It's because of the massive change in the evolution of crypto that we've enjoyed in the past 4 years. 4 years ago, we didn't know if governments were going to ban Bitcoin. We didn't know if the technology would become obsolete. We didn't know if consumers might not want to adopt it. We didn't know if there would be any institutional engagement. Today, all those questions are resolved. In the Trump administration, in the new Congress, there is massive support for crypto. Every member of the president's cabinet personally owns Bitcoin. Every major economic appointee of the president, the secretaries of Treasury, Commerce, Department of Labor, the heads of the SEC, CFTC, OCC, FDIC, all of them huge supporters of crypto. There's no longer a question as to whether the government likes this or not and is going to support the development. We also now see institutional investors engaging in ways never seen before. Banks are now permitted for the very first time, along with brokerage firms, to trade and custody crypto, which they could never do before. Stablecoins are now Goldman calls it the killer app of crypto. We now have a huge array going in, and in fact, the first legislation out of Congress is crypto legislation, the Genius Act. So it has radically changed. It is now a mainstream asset. And we look at the adoption rate, it's still incredibly low. It's only about 5% of the global population that own crypto at this stage. As more and more get involved, learn about it, discover it, and invest in it, we're going to see massive asset inflows. And because, and certainly in the case of Bitcoin, it's a fixed supply asset, the more people who buy it, the higher the price is going to rise.
Sounds like us, Brennan, on the podcast each week.
It does. I mean, he's got it right. He knows what he's talking about, and he makes a good point. So, yeah, I think that more crypto exposure will become normal. I think 40% for someone who wants high growth, a lot of risk, like it makes sense. Like I'll tell you what, like Spoiler alert, I have more than 40%.
Spoiler alert, me too. And I think it goes to the fact that there's ways to get crypto exposure. Over the show the last month, we've talked about the Circle IPO, right? So yeah, that's a stock, but and maybe this is an argument that we could have, or a debate, healthy debate. But it's like, is that crypto exposure? If you're buying Circle, it's a stock, it's traded on the stock exchange, but is it crypto exposure? Same thing with Robinhood or Coinbase. I mean, I think everybody would agree Coinbase stock is crypto exposure, no? So it's like there's these darlings of the crypto world that have entered the stock market that, you know, we have exposure to at times. Not speaking broadly for the team here, and when it comes to these individual stocks, but obviously we talked about Robinhood, we talked about Circle. So it's like getting exposure to that, plus our altcoin exposure, plus our Bitcoin exposure. It's like, dude, yeah. And the funny thing is, as these prices rocket, it takes up a bigger percentage of your portfolio. Yeah. We've talked about the MicroStrategy story, me and you, before, right? I was like, I'll put a little shekel into MicroStrategy. Like, I'll do that. And then boom, all of a sudden it's 15% of my stock portfolio. I'm like, oh my God, I got to trim this. So, you know, that's kind of how it goes, especially for the early adopters in the crypto space.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is, man. And, you know, a great sign that this is here to stay and that there's a lot more to come is, you know, we mentioned at the very beginning, the SEC, I think it was yesterday, approved Grayscale's index or basket ETF. And this includes Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, and Cardano. And at the very beginning, I was like, oh, well, this probably means that if we don't have ETFs for Solana, XRP, and Cardano, we'll probably have to get them. And we're already seeing the Solana ETF get approved here today. We'll probably see a lot more of those. I did see that out of the ETF applicants, and let me pull this up on my end real fast. There was a lot more. I think there was 7 or 8 of them in total. So yeah, Grayscale, VanEck, 21 shares, Canary, Bitwise, Franklin, Fidelity, CoinShares, and Invesco all have pending Solana spot ETFs. And I would imagine that we start seeing those very, very soon. In fact, I don't even see Rex on the list from what the Bloomberg intelligence guys were talking about, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, Rex wasn't even on that list, but yet here they are, the first spot Solana staking ETF is officially live. So something to keep an eye on.
Live on air, man. This is why you got to tune in. The live stuff is crazy.
It is, and man, we're just scratching the surface of this stuff. It's an exciting time to be in the crypto market. And we always say, like, you got to have fun while you're doing this.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that's kind of why we love doing the show. Is, you know, hey, we have winners, we have losers, we have calls that take time to go, but at the same, it's all about kind of building that community. And we all have different expertises in our whole team. The analysts that we have, obviously Bryce and you. So, you know, if you're ever interested in learning more about what we do behind the paywall, again, we give you, you know, a couple hours free a week, and we're going to even do more. So more free stuff. But there's something to be said about the community where it's literally that, you know, 24/7 access inside a buzzing crypto community with the coaching calls. So you're getting extra time, you know, with a smaller group live with Bryce and Brendan and our analyst team. So check out the links below if you're interested. You know, I know we got like a $1 offer to give it a shot. So as this broadening continues and as the momentum continues in the industry, if it's something that you're really interested in and you know, enjoy the podcast, check out the link below and see, maybe we'll see inside the community because we'd love to have you. But I got two more topics we didn't have on our sheet, Brendan, to wrap us up. I thought that, because this is a question actually that I've been posing, and we talked about it before, is like, you know, I don't want to say this on air, Brendan. I don't want to say this on air, but I'm going to. I don't want to, but I'm going to. I'm getting a little bored with the 100 to 108 price range in Bitcoin. I said it to you off air. We know we see it and we break it down. I'm getting a little bored. I know we're not supposed to say that, but I found a clip from Tom Lee. That was what, you know, juggled up my brain when we were talking about Tom. I was like, oh, I saw that clip the other night about Tom talking about why he thinks we're kind of stuck in this price range and price isn't moving. So let's listen to that, and I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah.
We know Bitcoin ETFs are the most successful product launch like in history. And then someone says, well, if you're going to collect that much money, Bitcoin goes to the moon. But it turns out Bitcoin's risen, but it's kind of churned. I think what happened is a couple things. One is a lot of these ETFs may have been receiving in-kind exchange. So people have their crypto keys, give it to the ETF provider, and then they just stepped up their basis. So that's not going to push up the price of Bitcoin. It adds to their AUM.
a wash.
Yes, it's a wash. And the second is that the ones who aren't involved in ETFs, but maybe they have $10 Bitcoin. We have clients that have bought Bitcoin at $100, and now it's 100,000. They're not looking to, they don't care if Bitcoin goes to a million. They are probably sellers at around 100,000. So we're churning the base now because 95% of the institutional world doesn't own Bitcoin, but a very significant portion of Bitcoin holders are sitting on huge gains. So I think this is the churn that's happening in Bitcoin now.
The churn, Brennan. What do you think of the churn?
I mean, it makes sense, right? It's a lot of these retail investors who have had exposure for a long time. They got in at 100. It's now 100,000. They already have their life changing, their generational changing gains. Do they need to take the risk of Bitcoin going from 100,000 to a million? No, they don't. I mean, they've already made millions or hundreds of millions of dollars off of this move. So why take that risk? And so there is a little bit of a turn now to a new generation of investors who want to take the next step. And it makes sense. That's really all I had to say about there. You know, I think he made a good point about the flows as well. That's standing out, how we're still seeing a lot of buyers over in there. And the fact that 95% of institutional money still is really not super exposed to the crypto market. So maybe we actually see a shift. Usually we see institutional selling the retail. This could be an inverse situation where we see retail sell into the institutional side.
Yeah, I think that in theory, maybe I'm wrong, is the first time in history that could happen. So just one more thing as we wrap up here and approach the hour. I thought it would be good. It's July 4th. Q2 just ended. Q2 just ended Monday, June 30th. At the closing bell was the fiscal Q2 for the stock market. So we are halfway through the year. Where did the time go? So I thought it'd be cool to pull up the Fear Greed Index here. And this is the CMC Crypto Fear Greed Index. If you want me to pull up another one, Brendan, the Bitcoin one or whatever, let me know. But I kind of feel that. I feel like we're in neutral, right? Like it's kind of like what Tom Lee said. There's a lot of churning going on. The excitement of 100K was euphoric and kind of greedy, obviously, in that December, January timeframe. And then we've come back up and kissed it. And I know we got into the greed level recently here. In May, and then kind of petering down into neutral levels, which I feel like is appropriate. And you're kind of obviously the macro. We've had a lot of shows based on the macro, but thoughts on the Fear Greed Index where we are today?
I think it's right. I think it's pretty accurate. We are sitting neutral at just below all-time high levels. I don't think we're in a fear territory. I also don't think we're in a greed territory. We just bounced off the dip. We rose back up. Now we're consolidating. And I think we're at a very neutral, solid level, which I'm biased, but I think we're going to resume to the upside. And this shows that if we are neutral, even leaning a little bit scared, there's a lot of room to the upside. We're not overextended. We're not overbought. We're not in extreme fear or greed. We have room to go up to that of extreme greed, but we're not even in neutral to normal greed territory yet. So it's more
that year in the bottom left here, that yearly high low is November 20th at 88, and then March 10th at 15. So just a roller coaster of a year, which it always in some way seems to be. So I think there's always going to be some volatility to the upside, volatility to the downside, and plenty of opportunity. So thank you all for tuning in, especially our YouTube friends. And I'll hand it off to you to wrap us up, Brendan. Happy 4th of July, everyone.
Yeah, happy 4th of July. We appreciate everyone tuning in here like normal. For those of you that come into the chat box and leave us questions and say, hey, and what's up, we appreciate it. We know most of you have to watch this back because you're working or you're with your family or whatever it may be. Life's busy. We appreciate all of you as well. And we love putting out these episodes every single week around Wednesday. Like Tiva said, we're going to be doing 2 of these a week pretty soon here. We're going to be making the change. So we'll keep everyone posted on that information. But for now, again, if you like getting all this content completely for free, check out our other resources. On the YouTube channel here, we have all sorts of other market updates, podcasts, tutorials, walkthroughs, you name it. We have a lot that's going on here. And if you want to get even more plugged in, then you can go down to the link in the description down below and you can check out all of our other resources in our communities. And that's where we get into a lot more detail about the picks that we're talking about and our choices in our portfolios. So you can go ahead and get access to our entire crypto portfolio for just $1 in the link down below. And if you are a Audible or a Spotify or Apple Podcast or any of those listeners, again, check us out on YouTube and drop us a like and subscribe. But thank you all for watching, and we'll see all of you at the same time, same place next week.